here with Dr. Jonathan Stinson.
This project was actually set up by my wife, Samantha Stinson, and the Jewish Federation of Arkansas to tell the story of Abigaill Levy-Franks through her letters, just to give a glimpse of what it was like to be Jewish and to be raising a kosher family in colonial America. We're talking about letters from the 1730s and 40s. And so these letters just kind of give a glimpse into a mother's thoughts about trying to raise a Jewish family and retain Jewish identity in the New World.
Wow.
Crystal Bridges has their commissioned portraits on display right now, and so this song cycle is going to be performed in the gallery. She had the idea partly just because we can read the letters and we can see the portraits, but it was an idea to actually have her words really heard. And obviously, being my wife, she knows that I'm a composer and that I have all of these song cycles, and I have recently moved into kind of a passion for the monodrama, which is essentially not just a song cycle of setting poetry based on emotional context, but having a little bit more of an operatic treatment to it. There are multiple themes and multiple sections, and some moments almost feel like recitative. Some go into a faster tempo before coming back. There are a lot of motives that come back, not necessarily from song to song, but within a song. A certain theme that came toward the beginning is now repeated toward the end, and that is all meant to capture the emotional ups and downs of each letter, because the letters are not always just one emotion or one thought. Think of, before email, before phone calls of, if you're sending a letter, you're talking about the ups, you're talking about the downs, you're giving warnings, you're giving love. Everything is so different. And so to capture those ups and those downs, couldn't just be done with one tempo and one key signature. And, and so, certain sentences, require pretty dramatic shifts in the music and in the storytelling. And so I think what you're going to get from this piece is a sense of drama as opposed to just kind of hearing these words set to music in a little bit more of a traditional song.
Sounds captivating.
Mhm.
Wow. So the letters from the 1700s, they deal with themes like family, identity, belonging, and how do you translate those historical emotions into a modern musical language then? Tell me
Sure.
a little bit about that.
Uh, it's a good question. I wouldn't say that I'm thinking specifically of just kind of how do I capture those moments outside of just thinking about them honestly.
Mhm.
I think it's more of just kind of, you know, I think the challenge is saying, okay, what is the challenge of being kosher today? Well, there are lots of ways that we can solve that, whether it be through, ordering things online or finding your kind of your own community, in certain places. But when you are, one of the few Jewish families on this continent, you know, then it becomes obviously a little more of a challenge. And so I think one of the things that I thought of is just remembering what the stakes were. That a warning. There's this one letter that talks about if you go to a certain person's house, only eat bread and butter, because you cannot guarantee that what you are being served would be, kosher. These are kind of almost commandments out of love, right? Because the idea is so important to keep that Jewish identity, and so to capture those in music, the idea of a monodrama or thinking of it a little bit more of an operatic treatment actually, I think, helps heighten these moments
Mhm.
because I feel like it would be a little disingenuous or wouldn't quite capture the mood if a loving letter just was set with pure loving music. Like there are moments where there's a little bit of a warning that you really need to do this, or a little bit of a maybe almost a little bit of a guilt trip. Like you please, one letter says that you have to write more, like write more often. We need to
Oh.
hear from you. So each letter is actually meant to be more of a scene
Mhm.
than it is a song.
Oh, I can't wait to see if
You
maybe
know,
it'll turn into something larger.
yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah,
the
well, we only set five letters. I mean,
okay,
there are
right. There's more.
dozens, if not hundreds, that exist. So, we could mine through these for more material and develop it into a stage work or into a larger monodrama,
Hmm.
meaning adding another 5 or 6 letters to create a work that's closer to an hour or more. So that's kind of a future project. But for now, we set 5 letters that we felt were very diversified in subject matter,
Hmm.
to try to capture her life um, trying to raise a Jewish family during the mid 1700s.
Where were they
They
in?
were in what is now New York.
Okay.
And so these letters are just the smallest glimpse into kind of her motherhood and her being a matriarch of this family.
Hmm.
There is one, the first song is very much out of love. You can tell that it's just a mother looking out for a child. One of my favorite songs is probably a song called Writing. She is saying, "You should write more. Why don't you write often?" And so the kind of funny dichotomy is that she's kind of chastising one person to write more while making excuses for other family members to not write as often. You
That's
know?
funny. That
And
makes
it just
sense.
kind of it's this letter that doesn't really talk about anything. I mean, it's just kind of bemoaning not hearing from this person, but acknowledging that she won't hear from this person. And I call it writing because it's a letter about trying to micromanage the communication of this family. You know,
Wow.
I thought that one was really interesting. And then the final song is fairly sad because she became very introverted and very lonely later in her life. And she has this line that my house has become my prison. And so the final song with that text just kind of dies away as if she's just kind of almost just giving up kind of hope. I guess I would describe it almost like a Little Women moment of Joe not wanting things to change. Of just kind of where she's just kind of almost feels exhausted, trying to kind of live this life in this area that is just so difficult given the circumstances. And as people are marrying and as people are, kind of moving on, and she's so concerned that they retain their Jewish identity, and toward the end of the life of her life, she really kind of felt a little isolated.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I
so
can
unfortunately it
imagine.
ends on a sadder note. I will give that spoiler.
Empty nest syndrome, it
Hmm.
can cause a lot of
Yeah,
changes. And I
sure.
think particularly where women weren't really going to have any type of job outside of the house,
Hmm.
all of her identity was wrapped up in, who she could entertain, or, what family members she could
Yeah.
nurture
Yeah.
spiritually and otherwise.
I think it's a good point that she, without having kind of her own industry, her family was her business, was her industry. And so what you're seeing in the letters is almost like a CEO trying to run the family. I think like she's trying to micromanage a couple things. One of the songs is called "A Violent Secret" because she refers to some gossip that she has on a family as a violent secret. And so that song is that letter, and then consequently that song is just very very gossipy and really quick and very kind of witty. And so she kind of had a little bit of a fire when it came
Hmm.
to that. And so
Hmm.
you'll find moments that are really tender and slow and beautiful, and then moments that are really, really sad and kind of downtrodden. And then you'll also find, this gossiping song that just has a kind of a fire underneath it.
That's great. I can't wait for that one. The performance is happening inside of the galleries,
Yes.
and they connect with the visual art. How does presenting the work in that environment shape the audience's experience?
Ooh. Um, I mean, I hope it does. Um, I think it's always nice when you're walking through a museum, especially something like this, especially with portraiture, to remember that these were real people. And so sometimes when you're looking at someone, it's nice to kind of know that backstory and to know that. So I think it'll be a really unique experience to see the portrait of the son and to see the portrait of this matriarch, Abigail, and actually be able to hear their correspondence as if they're in the room because they are in the room. But
That's
through
so
Samantha's singing, and Tracy's playing, you can look at the brother, I mean, at the son and look at the mother, and you can see their portraits and you can hear. their real correspondence from over 200 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I think that would be kind of a unique experience to say I'm looking at these two people and this is what they're this is how they are corresponding to each other, in the 1730s and 40s. I love interdisciplinary, art forms. It's why I got in a part why I got into opera. Because opera is considered, and just kind of storytelling through song. So I would throw musical theater in there as well, of course, is really just an amalgamation of all art forms. Everything from singing to dancing to acting to orchestra to painting to architecture, just everything is represented on the stage, costuming. Um, and um, and so to combine the artwork with the art history with very real American history during the 250th anniversary of the country with, singing and piano playing and composition, I think it just kind of creates this unique experience to see this piece. It's also kind of fun to attend a world premiere. I mean, the people that attend this they'll be the first audience to ever hear it.
Yes.
And of course, it'll go on to be published. It'll go on to be performed at other places. I hope it's performed in New York, kind of closer to where the family lived.
Sure.
To say that, you were there when it first performed, I think is kind of a fun experience.
Is Sammy enjoying embodying the character of Abigaill
She
Levy-Franks?
is, yeah. This is a kind of a one of her, loves is to find context with everything. And it's kind of been, at least in the last 20 years, although she would probably say forever, kind of a passion project to combine Jewish identity with art, which is one of the reasons why she became a cantor. But even outside of her cantorial, degree, she's always, been interested in programming, Jewish identity music within classical music.
Throughout this first season of VOCE, we've really worked on getting different realms of the community together to
Hmm.
celebrate the voices that we have. Voices meaning, in the throat, but also the voice in the heart.
Yeah.
And so this is really exciting for us to be able to partner with you guys. One thing that I've noticed in rehearsals with you and with your wife, and sometimes with kids in tow, is the joy that just emanates from you guys. And can you speak on that? Like how are rehearsals going? Do you have the laughter moments? I've highlighted some of those between you guys, but
Yeah.
it's very sweet to see your family in action and towards
Yeah. Thank you.
goals
Yeah.
and supporting one another.
Yeah. It's essentially when we first met, there were two things that we knew we wanted. We both wanted to have a family, and we both didn't want to get in the way of each other's careers. And so, because of that, essentially everything has always kind of been a combination of those two. It's not like we have our careers and we go home and have our family. Our family and our careers are kind of intertwined at this point.
Right.
That yeah, we'll have a rehearsal, we'll have a kid running around in the back of the church. That's just kind of something that just kind of comes with the territory at this point. And so I think one of the ways that we've been able to kind of continue having that joy and have that kind of balance, if you can call it that, is partly just because we haven't really separated them to the point that we're in rehearsal, so we have to be serious, or our family is, we can't think of our family while we're in rehearsal. Like they're just so intertwined that we're always, and we're both so busy. I'm on faculty at the university, but I'm also, a composer, and then I'm also a stage director, and I'm also an active opera singer. I'm singing an opera in France this summer, so like we're constantly busy. She, has her job at Walton Arts Center, but then also is the cantor and the spiritual leader at the synagogue. But she is also a performer. She just does so much, and we are constantly trying to figure out just okay, who's getting this kid at this hour and who's getting that kid at that hour, and it's always different every day because we are always so engaged with so many things. Um, that could be a really stressful thing, but for us, it's just kind of become part of our family identity, I guess, that we have moved beyond it being stressful.
Right.
So to come to your question about rehearsals, yeah, they've been very fun. We just had a rehearsal right before I jumped on
Mhm.
to speak with you. Now we were rehearsing just parts of the fourth song, and yeah, we had some really good times. Um, it's not all like joy and laughter because my
We're
music is
human.
very complicated. And I am starting to realize that it's very complicated. I say that because when I write it, I feel like, hey, this is really pretty. And then my wife will often say, this feels needlessly complicated. And I would say, which part? Because I feel like it makes sense to
Right,
me.
right.
And so she's learning it. I mean, we're not, it's not like there's any conflict there, but it's just kind of the growing pains of, okay, this is, there's some the music I would always describe as tonal. It's always it's very I call myself a romantic composer, but it's it takes some rehearsal. To their credit, the Traci Hall and Samantha, my wife, this is a very, very difficult score, and they are putting it together in a very limited amount of time, but they're doing very well with it. So I'm excited to hear what the finished product will be.
Kudos to you all. Wow. For those of you who haven't gotten your registration in, I have it linked in VOCE NWA. That's VOCE NWA.org under events. This is our last event of this season, and then we'll start posting the next season soon. So it'll be easy to find, and just make sure that you get that registration. It's for May 7th. That's a Thursday night at
Mhm.
Crystal Bridges in the gallery from 6 o'clock until around 7:30. And are you making any changes to it?
Yeah, a little bit. A couple tempos have been adjusted.
Oh, okay, so minor.
Little things like that. Other than that, the only other change is that I wrote them and then put them into the score in the order of the letters that I received. But we're most likely going to swap two songs or change the order of the two songs just because we're going to put the letters in chronological order.
Okay, good.
And so we're just tweaking things like that. But the score is done, and the more changes I make, I think the more stressed
Yeah, no.
out they will be. One of the most kind of philosophical questions a composer can ever be asked is, when is a piece finished?
Wow.
Because once you're done, um, you can always tweak it. You can always come back to it. You can hyper analyze it. And after the 20th thing, hearing, you can decide, I don't really quite like that note. What if I changed it to this note? Or this rhythm seems a little bit different. What if, and I've sometimes gone back and forth where I have a triplet figure that I decide to be a dotted figure that I decide I like better as a triplet figure. It'll go back and forth because both of them sound fine and I can't decide. And there's a certain point where you just have to let it go. It's just the piece is done. Let's
Piece
move
of-
on to the next project. Whatever it is, it is. And so I feel like I have gotten to that point about a week ago with this piece.
Okay,
That,
yes.
that the songs are done. I like them. I think the audience is going to really like both the drama of it and the tonality of it and the performance. I think it's going to be a really strong kind of piece. I'm really excited to share it.
Awesome.
But no more tweaking.